Welcome to the Maura Sweeney Podcast. Maura is an international speaker and the trademark ambassador of happiness with a passion for personal responsibility. She weaves insightful questions with personal stories to challenge your mindsets and empower your best and happiest self from the inside out. Here's Maura with today's podcast for you.
What are you made of? If you're on a path to living happy from the inside out, you'll want to tune into today's podcast and you will want to know the answer. What are you made of? Today's podcast follows two previous podcasts. The first being, are you really a racist? The second one being, are you color or character minded? Both of them were designed around the same theme that I'm picking up on, and it does have to do with the general term of racism and labeling and making judgments about people based on exterior rather than interior qualities. So today, picking up on that whole theme, what are you made of? Specifically, are you a label or are you substance? Are you a facade, as in a front, or are you an individual who is known by their internal character? Well, I want to provide with you today two stories from my background that will bring home this thought about what are you made of and how do you see yourself? How do you view others? And what is it that you use as a determiner of character or the substance within people? Here's the first story. It took place, my goodness, probably 3 decades ago when I was working in my corporate career, managing a branch office, and I needed to hire a receptionist to answer the phone and maybe do a little bit of filing. I don't even know if typing at the time was required. And by the way, you could see I'm obviously dating myself. So I hired a woman. She had a very nice smile. She was pleasant. She had a quality voice. And I thought, this is a very nice woman to bring into the office to say hello to all the salespeople and support people that would come in every morning to answer the phones, to follow through. And I think everything about this woman meets the requirements of the individual I'm looking for. So the woman started with us. She did just fine. And what I noticed after, I guess it was a couple of weeks, and as time went on, is that she would start to arrive to work late. Now, obviously, it was important that when we were open for business, we needed someone at that receptionist desk to answer the phone. And I would notice after a while that nobody was answering the phone in the morning, so I ended up from my own office answering the phone and doing her job. And a few times I said, oh, is there a problem for you coming into work late? And at first she had a couple of excuses. And then it happened again. And she said, well, you know, I have a young son at home. And I said, yes, I'm aware of that. She said, well, that was why I was late. Happened again. And I mentioned it again, that she needed to arrive on time, that her role was important in terms of being there for those people that came in the morning, as well as to answer the phone. And the next time she told me, the excuse was that she needed to stay at home because she was praying in the morning. So she was a Christian woman. She knew I was a Christian woman too. And I remember telling her, you know what? I have to get up extra early in the morning sometimes to pray because I know a lot awaits me for my day. I said, the only advice I could give to you is that if you need to get up in the morning and pray, you, like I, will have to get up earlier. You are being paid by our corporation to be here at a certain hour, and we cannot allow this to continue. Well, you kind of get the point. So after having several conversations each time we did, I would also follow through with a memo that I would craft, just confirming our conversation, explaining the repeated behavior patterns of getting to work late, and also explaining that should this continue, it would eventually result in her termination. Well, what do you think happened? It continued. One day she came in late and I let her know it was her final day. She would need to leave. Well, not too much after that, I got a phone call from our corporate office. and I was advised by the Human Resource Department that this employee had claimed that I fired her because she was black. Well, obviously, this news surprised me, and I explained to the person up in Chicago that this woman was the same color when I hired her as she was when I had let her go, and that her firing had nothing to do with her color, but it did have to do with her behavior patterns of constantly being late at work. I remember being surprised by it and perplexed by it, and I thought, well, why is she using her color as justification for my firing her when it had absolutely nothing to do with it? And furthermore, I remember saying to the person in Human Resources, I said, well, yeah, I know you've never been down here to Florida. I said, but I have several other people that work for me that also are black. And I said, they're still here. So anyway, that was one story about an individual who was made of a label rather than substance and wanted to hide behind a label rather than standing up and being an individual of substance who was responsible for her behavior patterns. Second story was this. Took place probably around the same time period. My husband and I had purchased a brand new 2-bedroom condominium in quite a nice area, and we rented it out to tenants. They were 2 men, both of whom were partners in a search firm business. The one that I used to deal with on a routine basis was the president of the firm. And he was very professional. He was very smart. I could tell he had nice personality skills, etc. And he really prided himself on his work. So they lived there for several months. And periodically I would get a phone call from the main partner. And he would be telling me things like, well, Maura, how's everything going in business? And he would proceed to tell me things that were going on in his executive search business. It was always good news. In fact, it was always very positive, business-minded news. And what I noticed over a couple of months of time is that he would send his rent checks to us, and they were bouncing. And I remember calling him back and letting him know that it bounced. And the first time he made an excuse. The second time, he said, Maura, I'll make sure it works. Well, what was happening is that this person kept calling me as if he was my friend and telling me how great things were going at work while continuing to bounce checks. Now, meanwhile, my husband and I had moved to another large home, and we had 3 mortgages to pay, one of which was the condo that he was living in. And finally I said to him, I was sitting in my office almost not believing what I was hearing, thinking, why is this man telling me things are going so great in his work world where he doesn't even mind the fact that his checks to me are bouncing, or to us, I should say. So finally I said to him, you know what, I'm sorry, this has now happened 3 times. And I said, if you cannot make good on these checks, you are going to have to find another place to live. Well, it didn't happen. He didn't follow through. So eventually I needed to call the sheriff as, things are happening here. And that was really the only way to evict him. Turns out I learned from the sheriff's office, not too much thereafter, that this same gentleman that we had rented to had claimed some degree of discrimination. And I said, discrimination based on what? He said, well, he and the man that he's living with in your 2-bedroom condo are in a relationship. Now, we're talking about probably like late 80s. So did they even call it gay back then? I don't know, homosexual. I have no idea. But I laughed and I thought, well, that is so interesting. Then why, if that was the case, I said I was not aware of it. I said, but if that's the case, why would I have rented to them in the first place? Another example of individuals who wanted to stay behind a label rather than step up and be substance. I was not renting to them because they were gay or not gay, nor was I evicting them because they were gay or not gay. And I just remember thinking, wow, is that amazing? And since when did their being gay determine their lack of rights? It was just very interesting. It was the same situation where the rubber met the road in terms of responsibility to other individuals for commitments they had made, and when they failed to measure up to that responsibility, they decided to throw out a label and turn themselves into some form of a victim and counterattack against me. And if truth be told, I went to school with people that were gay. I have friends that were gay. I worked with people that were gay. It wouldn't be a topic I would bring up, but I would choose people that I liked. And here they were accusing me in much the same way as the receptionist was accusing me of firing her because of her color. I want to know today, when you meet with people, do you have one bad experience and decide that people like that, in the case of maybe this woman who was black, now all blacks are bad? Or how about the fact that this woman was a Christian who was supposed to be praying every morning? Would you say, well, that makes all Christians bad? In the case of this man that I rented the condominium to, would you decide, okay, all gay people are bad? Or would you just say, I met one? And everyone that we meet can help us form our opinions. Sometimes there are women who've had one terrible experience with a man, and they hate men afterwards. I understand hurt, and I understand when people are abused. But does that necessarily mean that every other individual that carries a particular label needs to be viewed through the same lens? Will we, will you, will I, each one of us, be people of substance, regardless of what we look like, regardless of our affiliation, regardless of our title or appellation? Will we be people of label or substance? And will we be responsible to the commitments that we make to other people, from one human being to another? And when things get difficult, will we hide behind our label and use it as a means of self-protection and deflection so that we don't need to be accountable? Or will we be individuals of substance to say, you know something? I have something in my character or something in my behavior that needs to be addressed, adjusted, and changed. I hope it will be the latter. Because when we have people of substance who relate to others and we are looking for substance, not only will we be happier as individuals on the inside, but we will also find that we're helping the world to operate on a higher channel as well. So that's been my thought for you today. Are you a person of label or substance? And what are you made of? I know it's something good, and if you haven't yet gotten to that place, perhaps today's a good day to start thinking about becoming that person of substance too. Until the next time, this has been Maura with Maura for You.
For more insights on living happy from the inside out, subscribe to this podcast. To learn more about Maura, visit her mauraforyou.com website, where you'll find videos, blogs, books, and the Foundations of Happiness self-study e-course. Maura, 4, letter U.com, where Maura is always for you.